Karyn and Bryant for MMA Heat. I'm here with Steven Marrocco, who is a staff writer at MMA Junkie and also a columnist for SI.com. We thought we'd bring you a UFC 136 wrap-up. And I know we actually have a lot to talk about. We can touch on the undercard first if you want to. Any standouts for you? I know people have kind of been trying to make Miocic the next big Crow Cup.
Yeah, I didn't really see that. He definitely had a good performance. He was definitely dominant, but I'm not ready to call him the next big thing in the heavyweight division.
No. Do you think Joey Beltran was the right test, though, to even prove that?
I think that was the idea behind it. They wanted to get him in there with somebody who was tough and durable and somebody who wouldn't back down. Probably somebody with a limited ground game.
That's kind.
Yeah,
that was kind, Steven.
It was kind, but I think the idea was to give him a good first test, a tough guy, and I think he definitely passed it. Was it impressive? I don't think so.
All right, well, let's move on to the ones that were on Spike anyway. We had Showtime Pettis versus Jeremy Stephens. Showtime took it in a split decision, which we both sort of saw coming there. What'd you think of that fight? Do you think that either guy showed enough for a decisive win? I mean, Pettis especially?
It wasn't incredibly decisive. I mean, I think that Pettis basically got it by getting a couple of takedowns, but I don't think that Stephens really let him get off as much as he usually does when it comes to the stand-up realm. I know he tried that crazy kick at the end of the round. I think it was the end of the first round. But it was a fight that I think he had it in mind that he was going to put Stephens on his back and take away the threat from the hands, because he's obviously a very dangerous guy when it comes to open range and using his hands really well. So I think he got enough for the win. But again, it wasn't a Showtime performance. It was all right. I think this is a theme with the undercard.
Well,
it was kind of like,
and it's also the thing when you think, okay, well, not too long ago, Anthony was positioned to be fighting for the title. And then you kind of go, I don't think he would have gotten the job done. If the same guy showed up tonight to fight for the title, he's not going to win. Yeah,
well, Stephens is a very tough guy. He's always been a very good competitor. He's had some, performances where some opponents where he kind of got a bad luck of the draw. He fought Guillard,
right.
And
we'll get to that later.
We'll get to that later. And Guillard circled away a lot, played a lot of hit and run kind of attacks, and that was actually something that killed a big run for him in momentum. Yeah. So he was forced to kind of go back to the drawing board. But he's never really been off my radar. He's a very talented lightweight, and for Anthony Pettis to come out ahead in that fight, it was definitely an impressive thing. So he kind of did what he had to do to win,
But you didn't go, oh my God, what a great fight.
Jeremy Stephens is not a guy that he's not gonna make you look great. Right. He's not gonna sit there and make you look great.
Good for him though, but good for him then. Yeah. Well, let's talk about another fight that was on Spike. We had Damian Maia versus George Santiago, and it probably looks like this will be it for George. He came in to the UFC, lost to Brian Stann via KO. Now he lost to Damian with a decision. I thought Damian did a lot in his fight with Mark Munoz, showed a lot of growth in his stand-up. Obviously, he's very well known for his jiu-jitsu. Tonight, perhaps not the most dynamic, exciting fight, but I still think showing the evolution of Damian and moving him forward. Would you say? What do you think?
Well, it's always good when you can stand in with a guy like George Santiago and strike. His striking is obviously still a work in progress. He's developed to the point where he can stand with people and trade punches. He's probably not going to knock you out, unless you're a lower tier guy. Right. But he can stand and trade
and take it now and defend better. And
he's just generally a better. He's more technical with his striking, but he also benefited a great deal from George just not pulling the trigger.
Right. Seemed a little slow tonight, George.
A little bit slow, and when it comes to the ground game, you're going to give it to Maia most of the time, because if he gets top position, he's going to control. He wasn't actually as aggressive on the ground. If you remember, he was very much more of a controlling type of performance than an actual the type of performances that we've seen in the past, like against Chael, where he quickly got that triangle. Nate Quarry, where he'd hit that amazing takedown and then transitioned right to the back. A little bit less aggressive and a little bit more of a controlling performance.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on now to the main pay-per-view card. It's so funny because when this started out, it was all about Melvin in the lead up to these. You didn't really hear a lot of talk about Joe Lozon, and I actually sort of tweeted, being a Boston girl, I have a strong feeling toward Joe Lozon, but you can't not like Melvin Guillard. I don't like the fact that he doesn't know how to pronounce his own name. It's Guillard. It's a guillotine and a Guillard.
It's French.
It's it's French.
You know, is it not French? I mean, I don't know.
No disrespect, because Melvin is awesome, but it does kind of make me laugh. But anyway, all the pre-fight talk was about Melvin, his maturity, his growth, his readiness to fight for the title. Melvin. Oh, and he's fighting Joe Lozon. Bam! Less than a minute, done.
Bad style matchup, and really, I think the circumstances, the stage was really set for an upset because of so much attention placed on Melvin and Melvin this and Melvin that. Joe really had nothing to lose, and he really performed like it. He came in and he exploited exactly what has always been Melvin's weak point.
Well, and certainly part of Joe's strength.
Yeah.
You know, so,
absolutely.
I mean, yeah, and it is interesting, and that's not to take away from the fact that we didn't get to see it necessarily tonight, but I think Melvin is growing. But, you know, he got clipped, got rocked, got sucked.
Again, you know, I think he just kind of overextended himself. I think he maybe there's a situation here where it's like he got a little bit too overconfident.
Yeah.
And maybe he underestimated Joe a little bit. In the pre-fight talk, he was very much talking about the fight as kind of a foregone conclusion.
Right.
And again, his hand was way low when Joe caught him with a jab. He was coming in, and the force of that jab rocked him.
Right.
Joe Stevenson rocked him with a jab. Same situation where he's coming in and he gets caught with the momentum of the punch. It rocks him, then it sets up the submission. It's the same sort of situation. So the stage was really set, and I really do feel like Melvin's a very, very talented guy. But it's an issue, you know, of course, of breaking through to that next level.
Right. Well, let's talk about Nam, Phan, and Leonard Garcia. I remember the first fight. I covered that fight, and Nam was so peeved because he really felt like he won the fight. And tonight, obviously, he definitely did. But how about round 3?
Yeah, you've got to give it to Leonard. He's an amazing. I mean, look. I mean, the guy looks like a bar brawler. He really does. He performs like a bar brawler. He's all arm. He's all heart. He's all guts. And you know, Nam is more of a technical guy, stays tight, stays crisp, and he'll win that fight 9 times out of 10 with his skill set. But you can't hate on Leonard. You know?
You can't. Well, that's the thing, because Leonard is the guy that like you said, he is the bar brawler. He's obviously better than a bar brawler, but he's the guy who's got his hands down. At one point, you know, he wanted to go, like homeboy was tired for a while there. But when you talk about being able to dig and have some heart and stay in the fight, and even though his hands are at his waist or whatever, when he was throwing, he was still going for broke, and he knew. I feel like Leonard values the putting on a show element of a fight and the fight till the death type thing. I feel like, you know, at least he didn't give up.
Right.
You know, and that's a lot of guys kind of know, I'm done, and they don't keep going.
And he'll have a job because of that.
And he'll have a job.
He'll get a little bit more leeway. He'll get a lot more leeway, as a matter of fact. I mean, he's got a lot of good decisions.
Do you want to see the trilogy?
I would like to see the trilogy. I'm sure Nam doesn't want to fight it. I'm sure Nam would much rather get along, you know, go on and move on, because it's a fight that he won, but he still ended up, he wasn't the hero in the fight.
Right.
Leonard came out of that fight as the hero.
Well, and the simple fact that Joe interviewed the two of them together, and you know what I mean? You could tell, we were kind of joking, but you could tell that Nam was sort of like, all right, can I have a moment here?
Right.
Just one.
Now that's a ruined my moment. That's a Rashad Evans, John Jevons, you ruined my moment kind of thing. And listen, you know, there's nothing bad about it. You know, he put them together. It was an impressive thing. But yeah, you know, Joe, I think, started walking away, and Nam was like,
"Can I have a minute?"
Yeah, you know. So he'll get his moment. I'm sure he won't want to fight the trilogy. I'm sure he'll want to move up and, you know, move on.
Let's talk about now Chael Sonnen and Brian Stann. Chael is a person around which there's a lot of dialogue. A lot of people don't like him. A lot of people like him. A lot of people try. You know, I'm funny with Chael because I respect a lot about him, but still there's always something that kind of gets under my skin a little bit that I can't 100% be like, yeah, I love Chael. However, in the octagon, I think he's terrific. And, you know, tonight, I don't know if it was a question of Brian not showing up. I think it was Brian not being able to answer the wrestling and not being able to, even though he did have some nice reversals and he did save himself some, just overpowered tonight.
I mean, 2 years of wrestling, he said he started focusing on his wrestling, you know, 2 years ago after the Phil Davis fight. 2 years of wrestling is not going to... It's not going to cut it for Chael. Chael's been wrestling for a long time at a very high level, and he's got one of the best double leg takedowns in the UFC, really. I mean, just the way that he closes distance and gets the fight to the ground. Brian Stann was overmatched. I think he was overmatched. He was hyped because he's a very good person on camera.
Yeah.
He says the right things. He has the right image, and he's a stand-up fighter.
I was just going to say, he's a very good stand-up fighter.
Exactly.
If you look back at the fight he had with George Santiago, it was exciting, and he smashed him, and that's, you know, we need to put him with somebody that we're going to get more stand-up.
Right, and I can see the logic in the matchmaking, and he did go on a run. He beat Leben, and he beat Santiago, but against Chael, it was a bad style matchup from the beginning. I didn't expect Chael to finish him. That was actually pretty impressive for him to finish, but it was a bad style matchup.
Right. That was quite a submission. I mean, that was tight. That was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There was no getting out of that. Yeah, there was no getting out of that.
Yeah.
I do say this though. I still think Anderson beats Chael.
I would actually tend to agree with you because, I mean, there's always going to be some X factors that are going to play into the fight when it ends up happening, if it ends up happening. You know, the rib injury was obviously an issue the first time. You never know what the actual circumstances behind everything are. Everybody comes into a fight injured. Everybody comes in with little things here and there. So whether or not it's a rib or this or that with either fighter, a healthy Anderson Silva, I think, takes it.
Right, and I take a little bit of umbrage to the Anderson got lucky throwing up that triangle at the end. I know maybe it's a semantic thing, but I don't think it's luck if you know how to time something right and you know how to weather a storm and hang in there and not give up and submit somebody. I don't think it's luck. Do you know what I mean? And again, it could just be semantics.
Yeah, it's not luck. You know, Chael put himself in that position. Chael got caught. Chael didn't pull out. You know, Chael saw it coming. He didn't pull out. He was exhausted. He was spent, and that's what happened. It's not luck.
It's not luck, right? I mean, but
he
Chael
capitalized.
Right, and Chael is very good, and he's so entertaining, and he's somebody that I have a lot of admiration for in a lot of things, and maybe it's just that he said a couple things over the years that has kind of rubbed me a little bit the wrong way, but I think he put his money where his mouth is tonight. Certainly. I am surprised there was absolutely no ring rust. I thought there might be a moment of it. There was zero.
Yeah. And the thing is, your reaction to him is a reaction that a lot of people have.
Yeah.
You either love him or hate him, and there's design in that. When you talk to Chael behind the scenes and off camera, he's a little bit different, and I think a lot of people realize that when they actually talk to him.
He's cool.
But yeah, in the ring, he showed up. He delivered. He
totally delivered.
Yeah.
He delivered. But that was a nervy call out of Anderson at the end. I mean, it wasn't even a call out. That was a full on. I don't even know what you got. He was impolite.
Yeah, but that's his thing. That loss was devastating.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I know.
And so the moment was perfectly set. The mic was ready. He was cage side. That moment was perfectly set for him.
It really was.
It's really bothered him. It's really bothered him. It's like a psychological thing, because in his mind, he's thinking, why do I get so far? I beat him for 4.5 rounds, and then he submits me. And this is not an isolated incident.
No.
This has happened to him several times in his career.
But that's because Anderson Silva is awesome.
He is awesome.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like, it's okay. Well, let's move on, because this kind of transitions into the Kenny Florian, Jose Aldo fight, in that Kenny has lost some fights to very good people, and sometimes you go, okay, why is it that I just can't break through? Why is it that I haven't had? Because you're fighting really good people. Do you know what I mean? And so perhaps it's with Chael trying to fight Anderson. He's just not quite as good as him yet. Tonight, Jose Aldo, there was some back and forth. There were some rounds that I think Kenny definitely won, but tonight I just felt like Aldo was relaxed. I never felt that he was in danger. I never felt that he didn't feel completely confident that it was his game. I think
Kenny had the right idea. Mm-hmm. I think he started out with the right idea. He started to set the pace, set the rhythm with that jab, and by putting Aldo against the fence, which Aldo very correctly called attention to. He said, we did the exact same thing with BJ Penn.
Totally.
You take a dangerous guy with a lot of dangerous weapons, and you take that weapon away.
Right.
So he had the right idea, but then he backed off the gas a little bit.
Yeah.
Now Aldo wasn't, Aldo's a counter.
But also Aldo wasn't as aggressive as he's often been.
Yeah, he waited. Yeah. He waited an awful lot, but he didn't wait as much as Kenny.
No.
It was the same thing jumping forward a little bit in the main event.
Yeah.
You might just be waiting less, and he was working with the leg kicks. He was working. mostly with the leg kicks, with a couple punches here and there, and then he stuffed the takedown attempts, and that's more offensive.
Right. And you believe that Kenny needs to develop a double leg?
Kenny is with that single leg all the time, and if you know it's coming, you're going to know how to defend it.
Right.
And that's the thing when you're a jiu-jitsu based fighter. I'm not saying that he couldn't do it, but I'm just saying that when that's your bread and butter, when that's your primary art, people go to their primary art, that's what they're comfortable with. And he was never a wrestler. He was never an all-American guy. He was a jiu-jitsu guy who got into MMA.
Right.
Developed great striking skills. He's one of the best strikers out there. But that is the part of his game that's a little bit one-dimensional.
Yeah.
If you get the single leg off the cage, the guy's going to be able to defend it way better than if you're Chael Sonnen. He grabs both of your legs and delivers and drives through.
Brutal. So who can beat Jose?
That is a good question. Although
Dominic did a pretty good job and came close and hurt Jose.
Yeah, and it was by surging back.
Yeah.
It was because Jose waited.
Yeah.
That he surged back and he took those later rounds. The guy who's going to beat him right now is looking like Chad Mendes because he's got a double leg. He's got very solid boxing and he doesn't wait.
Right.
So that might be the key.
Interesting. All right. Well, let's move on to the main event because. It went Frankie's way tonight, and I don't know how you feel. I think we kind of agreed. It looked like round one was 10-8 for Gray.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people called round one for Gray, in the second fight, they called that a 10-7. This was not a 10-7. This was a 10-8 because it was a knockdown. There was one knockdown and a bunch of punches that looked horrible.
Totally brutal.
On camera, and probably felt horrible, but obviously they didn't drop him.
But then Gray kind of took round two off.
He took the rest of the rounds off, as far as I'm concerned. And I think he just, again, waiting for that perfect moment, waiting for that perfect combination. He's parrying most of the shots. He's controlling the distance most of the time. But when Edgar's output is more, and he's attempting more with leg kicks, with combinations and stuff like that, and Gray is waiting, parrying, waiting for that perfect moment to open up to land that kill shot. You're
losing. When you're waiting, you're losing.
Right. When it doesn't land, well, then you're losing. And then, of course, he landed the big punch at the end, and then the moment's gone.
But there was at one point when Gray literally shifted Frankie's momentum fully with that punch to the head. Like, just everything just completely changed direction.
Yeah.
That was brutal.
That was brutal.
He did land some solid punches. It's just he wasn't getting after it enough.
Yeah, he was waiting and he wasn't being first.
Right.
And
he wasn't cutting off the ring. You kept saying that.
That's right. He wasn't cutting off the ring. He was letting Frankie build up a rhythm.
Right.
And that's the thing.
And that was the thing, is as the fight went on, I felt that you could see Frankie getting more and more comfortable. And I just remember he's like a little tsetse fly. He doesn't stop moving. He's so active, and then he gets in there, pop, 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 super fast, accurate. He's in, he's out. He's in, he's out. And you're you find yourself just chasing him.
And it very much mirrored the first fight, except for the end.
Except for the end.
Yeah.
I was applauding Gray's hairdo, though. I like the McConaughey.
Is that what it's called?
I think so. It's kind of the wavy, curly thing.
So then it's artificial then.
Oh, I like Matthew McConaughey. Come on.
I'm just saying, it's artificial.
Although I don't want to get into okay, all right. There's a whole other stuff. I don't want to disrespect anybody. So we're going to just leave it.
I'd love to disrespect people, actually, as a matter of fact. Let's take a moment to do that.
This could be all
Start a war with Matthew McConaughey. That's just what I need.
He's a good guy, actually. He's pretty cool. So Steven, so for you then, where do you do now? Do you write up articles on what you think is the next step for some of these fighters for tonight? Well, for you, as far as Junkie goes, what should we look for? And SI.
Well, for SI, I'm going to be doing my stock watch, which is basically about where fighters are after the performance, where they might be going next, who came out ahead, who's sort of hovering, and who's on the decline. It's my stock watch. And then Junkie, we're going to be doing, all the post-fight stuff, all the post-fight interviews, and the comments from the fight. And then we roll on to the next one.
Nice. If I can get one tease on that, what about Ken Flo? Is he done? Should he keep going?
He's going to have to take a long, hard look in the mirror. I think he's going to possibly go back to lightweight. 145 is not a fun experience for a guy who started out at welterweight.
Right.
Does he hang it up? I don't know about that. That's pretty harsh. But
I think so,
he's a guy that's been around with the company for a long time. He has a job for as long as he wants it. So he can continue to fight, name guys. But as far as the title, I think that's it for him. So basically, at this point, it's going to be about basically securing his financial future and also just doing something that he loves.
Well, I would say in his benefit, he is very good on camera as a commentator.
Yeah.
I think he can stay employed in
Absolutely.
and around the industry for sure.
Very employable, very smart guy, very good on camera, and he's like I said, he's always going to have a job. It's just, you know, the title. I don't know about the title.
All right. Well, Steven, thank you for joining us here on MMA Heat. It's just a wrap-up chat about UFC 136. Leave your comments. Thanks for watching.